Welcome and good evening, everyone. Let's make sure my volume is up. Thanks for joining us for this evening's webinar, which is the fourth installment in our 7-part series on how to improve your child's reading. Tonight's session is proudly brought to you by Kibooks.online, the awesome new digital online reading platform for children, and in association with EduBlocks, our partner and the leaders in specialized reading and math services. If you've missed the first few sessions, don't worry about it. You'll find it on our webinar link at www.qualibooks.co.za. Simply click on the webinars tab and access it from there. Tonight's session and all future sessions will also be recorded. I'm aware that load shedding is playing a big part in everybody's lives tonight. I've been inundated with emails from people who are saying that they are having load shedding between 6 and 8:30 tonight. They can't join us. So don't despair. If anyone wants to know where to find the webinars, they are being recorded and they will be available on our website. Tonight, we're looking at the connection between your child's reading and auditory skills and why hearing and auditory memory is often the hidden culprit for reading difficulties. I'm your host, Chris de Beer, and I'm looking forward to hearing from our experts tonight and what they have to share with you. Their keen insights and wealth of information and knowledge is sure to be of great benefit to us all. They'll offer practical solutions in how we can help improve the overall reading and comprehension abilities of our children. Before we get started, just a couple of general announcements. Visit our website, as I mentioned, www.qualibooks.co.za. Click on the webinars link for more information and diarize the dates in advance. As mentioned, each session will be recorded and made available from our website. After tonight, the remaining 3 sessions will be brought to you on the first Thursday of each month until August, same time, same place. We will not have a question and answer session tonight. However, feel free to drop any related questions you may have into the chat box, and with time allowing at the end, we will answer them later on tonight. So please stay tuned. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and stay up to date with everything that we're currently busy with. During this session, we will post the links to the chat box. As always, there'll be some takeaways at the end of the session up for grabs. These are on offer exclusively to you as tonight's webinar participants, and details of this will be made available at the end of the session. So be sure to stay with us throughout. Kibooks.online. Our mandate with Kibooks.online is to help develop a reading culture amongst our children. It was created with a unique vision. Rather than following a formula and creating something in accordance with a mechanically followed rule or style, we wanted to turn a traditional model on its head and create a digital reading platform that is exciting, original, creative, and captive. The platform is not a library as such. Instead, it offers unlimited access to thousands of top quality books, which are bright, colorful, interesting, with compelling content to be accessed and enjoyed anywhere and at any time. Therefore, our children no longer need to rely on limited access within the context of the school environment. It means they can have 24-hour, 24/7 access, be it in the comfort of their own home, at a friend's place, the local library, or even better, when they're away on holiday. The platform also caters to all 11 South African languages, and it is data-free. For more, visit the platform www.kibbooks.online and explore our world of books by clicking on the demo login button, or watch the video tutorial for more detail, or simply email us at info@qualibooks.co.za. This information will also be posted into the chat box during the course of tonight's session. Now that we've highlighted Kibooks Online as the tool, you need the skill set to use it optimally. Together with our resident expert, Monique van Heerden from EduBlocks, we will be exploring essential components relating to the connection between your child's reading and auditory skills.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, we've been working with Kibooks for a while now, presenting a webinar once a month, and the response was really overwhelming. So I'm very excited tonight to be part of the presentation again, and thank you for lending us your ears. We will be presenting the webinar on listening and hearing, as Marlies said. So please lend me your ears when I kickstart the second session then first. I I would like to set the tone first of all and share something personal with you. A personal story. I sent my husband to the shops recently with a very clear instruction. Please just go and buy some coffee and sugar. And sure enough, as nuts, he returned with bread and milk. I know there's a few moms out there that can share this experience. Ladies and gentlemen, if we as adults struggle with this auditory input from your wife, how much more difficult do you think it is for our children, for our 8-year-olds, our 10-year-olds, our 12-year-olds? So tonight we're not going to look for excuses because we are really invested in our children and we want to help our learners develop adequate auditory skills so that they can improve their academic results. Just a quick overview of auditory memory. I don't want to go into a lot of detail because that's what Marilise is going to do. But auditory memory involves being able to listen to information, process that information, store it in your mind, and recall it as you've heard it. So it basically involves attending, focusing, listening, processing, storing, and recalling. That is a lot for children to be able to do. The frustration of talking to children where it goes in the one ear and out the other ear is real and very familiar to a lot of teachers and parents. So if a child struggles to read with auditory memory, you will pick it up quite quickly because they will often have difficulty following instructions, paying attention. They will often experience difficulty remembering new terminology. And I'm not specifically talking about our senior, intermediate, and senior phase learners, where they have to learn a lot of new words that are very subject focused, that terminology. And information in class that's being presented orally, because as we get older and as you progress into higher grades, teachers are presenting more and more information orally. A poor auditory short-term memory has been significantly related to ADHD symptoms and to language problems. And auditory memory plays a very important, actually a crucial role in literacy, which directly impacts reading, spelling, writing, and guys, even later on, math skills. So working with older students, in my case, I think our concern as teachers working with older students is more with the student who are able to read fluently, and yet they've got no idea what they've just read. And it's because they were not able to listen to that little inside voice, so to speak. You can understand that a weakness in auditory memory can have serious consequences on tasks like comprehension tests and studying, because those activities require of the child to be able to listen and process what he's hearing. Now, the good news tonight is that at EduBlocks, we actually develop these skills. And our next webinar is going to focus specifically on the art of comprehension tests. So I hope that you guys will join us then again. So what you are going to hear tonight will help you to also understand that auditory memory is most probably the most prevalent, but also the most overlooked learning deficiency. Right, there is light at the end of the tunnel, ladies and gentlemen. And this is what I want to share with you tonight. I want to share with you a useful tool that you can use to test your child's auditory memory span, so that you can be certain that your child's auditory skills are actually on par for grade level. And if you are a teacher, it's important that you know that the children in your class have got a good auditory memory span, especially if you're going to teach them to read and spell using the phonics method. Now, a digit span is a standard measure for short-term auditory memory. For example, the number of digits that a person can recall in the correct order after hearing them or seeing them. Mom and Dad, it's pretty much like being able to remember somebody's cell phone number when they give it to you. So how are you going to test your child's auditory span? Well, you are going to read out numbers slowly in 1 second intervals. You need to read it in a monotone voice. We don't want to give any clues. So for example, let's say we're going to read 4 digits. You will say 6, 1, 5, 8. And the child will then repeat it back to you. If he's able to do that, then we're going to move on to 5 digits. 5 completely new digits. And you're going to read it again, 1 digit per second in a monotone voice. So let's read 9, 2, 4, 7, 5. Now the child must be able to repeat the 5-digit sequence correctly. If the child struggles with 5 digits, you are going to read it again. You are obviously going to choose 5 new digits. It's important that the child must be able to get it correct 75% of the time before you can say this is the child's auditory digit memory. So if you are going to read it 4 times, 3 out of the 4 times the child must be able to repeat it back correctly. What is the rule of thumb? The rule of thumb says a child of 2 years of age must be able to repeat back 2 digits. A child of 3, 3, a child of 4, 4 digits, a child of 5, 5. I can somewhere feel the tension as the 21-year-olds among us are getting nervous. Don't be alarmed if your auditory memory seems poor, because the average for society is 7. From a 7-year-old to adulthood, the auditory span of 7 is theoretically the average. I always jokingly say that is why our cell phone numbers are 08 and 7 digits. But that's also theoretically the reason why a child goes to school in the year that he turns 7, because we are assuming that the teacher will be able to present 7 new concepts, and the child will have the auditory span to keep up and process accordingly. It's not happening for our children at this stage. Right, guys, so I hope that you'll be able to use this tool, and I hope that you'll be able to determine whether your child's auditory skills are strong. And if you need any assistance, EduBlocks is definitely one of the programs, the program that is able to develop those cognitive skills. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm now giving you the last part of the presentation first. The ultimate goal here is reading comprehension. If you're not able to comprehend what you're reading, then you're simply barking at the page, because reading without interpreting and understanding is not reading. And good comprehension skills include the following. You need a good vocabulary. If you don't understand the language that you are reading, you are definitely not going to be able to read with comprehension. And language was one of the first topics that was addressed in our earlier webinars. So if you've missed it, please go onto the Keybooks website and go and have a look at that webinar. Then the child also needs a strong auditory memory skill. And that is what Marilise is going to unpack for us today. And the third thing is you need the tools how to approach a comprehension test. And that is going to be the focus of our next webinar, how to approach a comprehension test. So Marilise, I hope you are ready for me. I have now given you my part. In conclusion, EduBlocks is the reading and learning clinic We develop the skills that underlie reading development, of which auditory memory is one of them. And if you've got any questions or you want to contact a EduBlocks franchise, you are more than welcome to go onto our website and get the relevant information there. Thank you so much, Chris. I'm saying amen for tonight.
Thanks, Monique. Thank you very much for jumping in there. Marlies, yes, I'm not going to reintroduce you. We've been through that. And there's a bit of irony in what's happening tonight is that the visual component has let you down a bit, but it's all about the auditory. So over to you, and we look forward to hearing what you have to share. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, I think I've managed to sort out my slideshow and my issues over here. Okay, so please lend me your ears, and I would love to tell you a little bit more about what I do on a daily basis. Okay, so as I said in my brief, trying to encourage you to listen to me previously, was that there are two processes: hearing and listening. Hearing is a natural, accidental process. Yes, if you've got a hearing loss, it's not such a natural process, but it just happens. You are born with this ability. It's not really a higher cognitive skill, but listening, on the other hand, is much more meaningful, because then meaning is attached to the sound. Listening is an acquired skill. Listening does not just happen. You need to make a child attent on what to listen for, what is important information to listen to, and what is not really important information to listen to. So that by itself means that listening is a higher cognitive function and a cognitive process, not just sound in, sound out. There's a processing that takes place. Okay, so that's very important to understand. Listening requires then normal hearing, okay, or then hearing aids or hearing devices. So how do we determine if a child has a hearing loss? We need to go to an audiologist, and that means that the child can, their hearing gets tested via a full diagnostic test. We can actually already determine if a child has a hearing loss within 24 hours after they were born. Okay, so in hospital, a lot of the hospitals offer a screening, and that means that they are doing an OAE test or a test of the ears already within 24 hours after a child has been born. So the other way that we can determine if a child has a hearing loss is by doing a diagnostic test. And that usually we strongly advise that you do by the age of 6 years. Okay, so when a child starts to listen and to they have to do different kinds of sounds and learning to read, then it's very important that you get your child's diagnostic hearing tested. And then by the age of 7, if they have proficient vocabulary, we can do auditory processing disorder test. And that's a little bit more of an in-depth test. So if you've determined that your child has good hearing, but the teacher keeps on saying that, oh, this child's not listening, I think he might have a hearing problem, then it's almost certainly that it's not a hearing problem, but a processing problem. And that is what I want to get to for tonight. So why is it so important for us to listen? We are surrounded by auditory language, and the children need to hear to make meaning of this. So if you are listening to sounds, you need to assign meaning to that sound. Okay. And then if you have poor auditory skills, it's very difficult to recall what a specific sound or a specific letter might sound like. So for instance, if you take the letter A, in cat, it sounds k-at. In car, the exact same letter, the A, sounds a little bit different. For instance, k, or, r, not k, a, r, like in cat. So the same visual cue can have different auditory meanings. And that's why we say that learning to read begins in a child's ears, because if they can't hear the difference between the ah in cat and the o in car, they will not be able to differentiate and to listen and to read. Okay, so how do we develop these auditory skills then? It's not necessarily a hierarchy. Some of the skills can suddenly, all of a sudden, appear simultaneously. And then all of a sudden you think, oh, my child's not listening as well as they used to. They are struggling to put sounds together again to form a word. So that means that this progress might plateau for them. And as a child learns more and more complex language, it might seem that they are not listening as attentively because they revert back to a low auditory skill. But as I said, as their vocabulary progresses and it becomes bigger and bigger, they need to add this auditory skill to the visual, to the meaning, and a lot of things happen simultaneously if you now are studying words that you haven't come by in previously. So basically 0 to 2 years is the critical age for developing language. And that is when the brain and the neural pathways are the most pliable. And that's actually when language forms the quickest. The later in life, if any of you have tried to learn a second language or a third or a fourth language, you might discover that it's a lot more complicated than when you were little. So what are some of the stages of development? So we're going to look at a couple of these. Luckily, Monique already covered comprehension for us a little bit. So I'm very relieved that she jumped in here for me. Okay, so what is detection? That's the first level of listening. It's just an awareness of sound. You will see that your baby, when there's a loud noise, they startle, or it can be just a consciousness of sound. Okay, it's not necessarily that they have to identify what they heard. It's just to show that sound is on or a sound is off. Okay, there was a sound and now suddenly there's no sound. Okay, and it can be as simple as the child's name, or it can be an environmental sound, for instance, a dog barking. And this usually develops by the age of 6 months. So how do we know if a child is detecting a sound? Okay, we look at physiological reactions, and this is often what we use when we implant a child with a cochlear implant. That first moment when we switch on the cochlear implant, it's this recognizing of a response. And very often it's a very physiological reaction. Sometimes the children start crying, they start tapping their head like this, they stop an activity that they are busy with and they look up. So then you know that detection took place. The next level is discrimination. And this is when you determine if two sounds are the same or if they are different. And there's still no meaning attached to it. For instance, a dog barking versus a child shouting, or if it's on a more complex level, man versus pan. Okay, so if you look at your mouth, the same letter is formed bilabially here in the front. Okay, so man and pan. Okay, the one is just the plosive sound and the other one's a more nasal sound. But if you look at lip reading, it looks exactly the same. But they sound different. A m and a p sounds very different. And that's very important when the children start to learn to read. So identification is a much more demanding response and it requires a response. It's a much more demanding task and it actually requires a response. So this is when a child already has good vocabulary and a good language base. So they hear a dog barking and they say, oh, that's a dog. So they provide a label for what has been heard. And again, this can happen in different levels. For instance, a sound level, a word level, a phrase level, or a sentence level, okay? Because there is now a response that you need to give to an auditory input. And this response can be in written language, it can be a verbal answer, it can even be in a lower level, just pointing to the object that somebody has labeled for you. Auditory comprehension. This is now when you are an active participant in the conversation. Okay, auditory comprehension should actually not be confused with reading comprehension or written comprehension. So auditory comprehension is a listening task. Okay, and you are an active participant in this task. So that's, for instance, answering a question, reacting to a request, or interpreting meaning. For instance, mommy is angry. If you have the accent on mommy, it's not daddy that's angry. It's not my sister that's angry. Mommy is angry. Okay. Or if the accent goes to angry, you say, mommy is angry. She's not happy. She's not sad. You're in trouble. She's angry. Okay. And this is a very difficult level for some children, and it only develops at a later stage. Sarcasm, jokes, emotions, all of those things develop as a child's language develops. So my husband loves sarcasm, and his sarcasm is completely lost on our 6-year-old. Okay, so our 6-year-old has not, he's really trying to get her to understand his sarcastic jokes, but she's not there yet. And even though I tried to explain to him that her auditory comprehension is not that great, it's not an age appropriate skill yet. So this is very important. That's why we don't teach a 2-year-old to read already, or a 3-year-old, but we need the basis. We need the identification. We need the discrimination. We need the first couple of levels before we can get to the comprehension, because comprehension is a process. It's a processing, auditory processing skill. So for a normal hearing child that has no hearing loss or other auditory problems, they can have problems with discrimination, with memory, as Monique so nicely demonstrated to you, with sequencing. For instance, what sound comes before which sound? Okay, so if they say elephant, but they write effluent, they can't hear that the L comes in the beginning of the word, not in the middle or at the end of the word. And then obviously auditory comprehension, as Monique so eloquently told us about. Okay, so the next slide I want to show you is that this is some of the skills that needs to be acquired before we can get to reading. Okay, so for instance, participating in rhymes, singing songs at 2 to 3-year-olds, matching words that rhyme. So if I say cat, you say mat. I say bat, you say cat. Again, okay. So these are some of the things that you can actually play in the car on the way to school with your child, and see how many words each morning you can get that rhyme. Or you say, I say a word that starts with T, and then you must say tap, and then your child say talk, and I say to, and you see how many sounds that starts with the initial sound. And then you can make it, obviously can make it more and more difficult. End sound, it has to have that specific sound. For instance, your word needs to have an N in it. So it can be any word, but it needs to have an N in the word. And then producing hot, the og. What does it make together? Hot dog. Okay, but that's only a skill that develops by the time between 5 to 7 years. So how do we identify if a child has an auditory problem? So there are several tools available. Always start with the audiogram, because 10 in 100 children actually are born with a hearing loss. Okay, so please get your child's hearing tested. It is very, very important. And then there are several checklists that you can use. Some of them are used by professionals like an audiologist or an educational psychologist. But like the Fisher's auditory checklist is something that you can download from the internet. And it has a part that the parents and the teachers can fill in. For instance, he's struggling with blending sounds together. Yes, he doesn't have a hearing loss. Yes, I'm querying this. So it's literally a checklist, and it has some norms at the end of it. The CHAPS and the Buffalo Model questionnaire is more for peer or more for specialists that use it as in a diagnostic process. Okay, so what can you do for a child with an auditory processing disorder? In the classroom, you can seat the child closer to you, but don't put the child right underneath your chin, okay? Because then they need to look up at your double chin the whole time when they are trying to focus on what you are saying. Visual cues is very, very important for a child with an auditory processing disorder. Keep them away from doors or windows or even a fan that goes tick, 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 tick the whole time. They will struggle immensely to listen to you. Make it as visual as you can. If you're a teacher, pre-teach some of the vocabulary. If you're a mom and you know that your child's going to struggle, ask the teacher to send their planning for the week so that you can teach some of the key concepts to them. And then you can also get assistive listening devices for children with auditory processing disorders. It's not a hearing aid. I'll tell you a little bit more about it at the end. Listening cues is so important for a child with an auditory processing disorder. For instance, if your child's name is Hendrik, you say, Hendrik, listen, I want you to close the door, go to bed, and no, close the door, switch off the light, go to bed. Okay, so that Hendrik, listen, pause is very, very important to get the child's attention, and giving them the visual instructions, counting down the instructions. Keep everybody informed of your child's condition, okay? Don't be scared. If you are the parent, advocate for your child, and that is so, so important, to advocate for your child. What else can a teacher do? They can do alternative testing. For instance, fill in the blank, true or false, multiple choice. Those type of things are much easier for a child with an auditory processing disorder. And then there are concessions that you can apply for instance, writing in a separate venue if the child is auditory, very hypersensitive, and then giving them a quiet area for independent work. All right, so I've told you a little bit about assistive listening devices. And this is one of the devices that can be seen or that can be found. And this is the Roger Focus. So as I said, it's not a hearing aid. It looks like a hearing aid, but it's an assistive listening device. So that means that the child wears the devices, okay? And so the child wears these devices, and the teacher or the parent wears the transmitter. So that means that the teacher or the parent's voice gets transmitted directly into the child's ears. So it doesn't matter where they sit in the classroom. It doesn't matter how noisy the classroom gets. They can hear the teacher clearly. But it does not overpower the environmental sounds and the learners that are talking around them. It's adaptive. So the quieter it is, the less input it gives. The more noisy it gets, the more input it gets. gives. Okay, so it actually increases the signal to noise ratio and making it better for the child to hear. And this is often prescribed for learners that are struggling to focus, learners with ADHD, etc. Okay, and then last but not least that I want to share with you is the Soundfield system that's also provided by the Ear Institute. So this is, you will see that it's got the same transmitter that will send to a personal device, can also send to a classroom speaker device, if I can say it. It's not a PA system, so it doesn't overwhelm and make it very, very loud, okay, because obviously the teacher next door also needs to teach still, but it just enhances the teacher's voice so that it's more audible for all the learners. And really, one of the biggest things in our day and age is learners are so used to watching TV and to seeing all of these cartoons and getting this visual input, and they don't learn to listen and to process and take time before they answer. Okay, so after all of this and after all of my technical issues, I hope you guys have learned something and that you will inspire to be more auditory aware and to help your children to develop their auditory skills.
Annelies, thank you. Thank you very much. We sell met Stamper and Stoter. Now, thank you. Thank you, Marlies. Thank you for Monique for jumping in, and both of you for your valuable insights again and your keen, keen participation. And folks, don't worry if you've missed anything. Like I've said before, it's all being recorded and it will be on our website from tomorrow onwards. I think this was a very valuable session. I think you'll agree. There are a few questions I see that have been coming in late. I think for the sake of time, we're not going to engage in a Q&A session at the end, but your questions are being noted by the panelists, and that we'll respond via email. Their details are being posted in the chat box as well, so please take note of that. And and let's chat to them, because this is an extremely important component. I think it's clearly misunderstood or disregarded as a key component in a child's reading ability. So thank you very much for sharing on that. I've certainly learned a lot, and I believe everyone else as well. We take a lot of things for granted, and auditory component is extremely important. So thank you. Yeah, thank you, for sharing with us, guys. It's really, really appreciated. And yeah, we look forward to continuing with this. I think this is, if you watch all the sessions as we go along, this is the 4th installment in the webinar series. We're going to end up with kids that are absolutely waxed as far as reading is concerned. They're going to be great, and it's up to us as the parents and the teachers to use the information we're gathering from these webinars and sharing it and introducing it to our children and identifying where there are needs as far as that's concerned. Now, let's move on to the next session. Again, thanks to the panelists for everything they've shared. But you guys have been with us now tonight, so you can't go away empty-handed. So tonight's takeaway, as promised, there's quite a few. So take note of them, and again, they will be shared in the chat box. Starting off with EduBlocks, they're offering tonight's takeaway a discount of up to 30% on both their on-site and online products, as on display on the screen at the moment. The discount code is indicated in the top left, and it's available to all first-time clients until the 9th of June 2022. So hurry along and take advantage of this offer. The voucher, together with the contact details, is included and will be placed in the chat box for your ease of reference. Then Marlies, from her side, there's a double offer on over here tonight. I note one of the questions was somebody about adults and adult needs. The Ear Institute is offering a free hearing check to all persons over the age of 13 at any of their centers nationwide. So important, if you know of anyone who has a need, please refer them to this. It's a very necessary and a very well, necessary and useful a check that I think most, if not all of us, need to undergo. Start Online is also making available a free reading subscription valid until the 1st of June 2022. It's for you to enjoy and enabling and encouraging your children to explore the world of books, to read and have fun with it. So please go to www.kibooks.online and enter the following user details. Join us again and you'll see if you can continue thereafter. So please enjoy it, make use of what has been placed on offer, and let's get our young ones reading. That's what it's all about. That's what these sessions are all about, is to get our children reading. All the contact information is on the box, as I've said. So join us for our next session, which is going to be the walls of the House of Reading, reading strategies and comprehension. So be sure to join us for that session on Thursday, the 2nd of June, same time, same place. So folks, hope you've enjoyed the evening with us. Until next month, thanks for joining us and have a wonderful evening further. Good night.